G'day ladies and gents, and welcome back to War Thunder with Mags, and today welcome aboard one of the most underrated aircraft in War Thunder, the SBD-3 Dauntless. This tiny little naval dive bomber comes in at rank 1, battle rating 2.3. This aircraft's armed with two 12.7mm heavy machine guns with 1,200 rounds of ammunition and one 7.62mm MG mounted in the rear gunner's position behind the pilot. The Dauntless also comes armed with a standard bomb load of two 100-pound bombs and a single 1,000-pound bomb mounted down the centre axis of the aircraft. Now it's important to note that this bomb load cannot be changed. There is no other ordnance loadout for it, and it cannot be removed from the aircraft. It will always have two 100s and a 1,000 at the start of the match. Now, as the Dauntless is a dive bomber, it does get a bomber air spawn at the start of a realistic battle match. However, there have been circumstances where it has received a carrier spawn on Pacific maps. It seems random. I'm not entirely sure what triggers it, just sometimes you will not be allowed to take the air spawn, other times you will. So that's what the aircraft is and that's what the aircraft has, but what about it makes it underrated? Well, for starters, durability. The SBD can take an absolute power of fire in comparison to an equivalent sized aircraft. Add to that maneuverability. Its turn time is listed at around 25 seconds according to the stack card. However, remember all the stack card turning times are on rudder only. When you actually start throwing this thing around the sky, its turning time and its maneuverability is fantastic. Although you do have to watch the elevator at speed, it does get a little to the heavy side. Speaking of speed control. The SBD is equipped with air brakes, being a dive bomber, and it has monstrously oversized air brakes for what it is. This thing can decelerate in a dive. So while it is not a particularly fast aircraft, anything that you find that you can't outmaneuver, you can just slam on the brakes and it will overshoot you. So beginning our time in a live match, and we release the bombs. I flew directly over the top of the bombing target, turn 90 degrees nose down and release. The SBD will release a perfect bomb drop every time if you do this. It's fantastically easy to do, and due to its air spawn, as a general rule it's not an aircraft that runs a risk of being intercepted before it clears its bombs out. And speaking of being intercepted, here comes the Yak-1, open up with the 250 cals mounted on the engine cowling. Now, I did shoot poorly there. I actually had a moment where I forgot the 50 cals were mounted on the engine cowling and not in the wings, so I was shooting slightly too high and going over the top of the target. But nevertheless, dropped the guns in just enough time, set the Yak on fire, and that is my first kill of the match. Now, remember I was saying before about the durability of the SBD. As you can see, I've taken engine damage, I now have a fuel leak, I have damage to the vertical stabilizer and the elevators. The rudder, mercifully, has managed to escape damage, and by the end of this I will actually have an oil leak as well, and the engine will be overheating itself. And the Dauntless couldn't give any less of a shit if it tried. It really couldn't. It will take all of this damage and more and still remain combat capable. You have to put a Dauntless into the ground to actually stop it from being able to fight. Think of it like trying to shoot down a single engine heavy bomber that's in most cases smaller than your fighter. So diving in for a pass at the I-153, and it sees me coming in and manages to just avoid in time. That is the premium, the rank 1 premium I-153 as well, so it is definitely a fully upgraded aircraft. Just loop the SBD over to line up for a second dive, and I'm just watching the I-153, waiting for it to do something stupid to line itself up, and that will be perfect. It goes vertical, trying to follow a target, doesn't see me turn around and come back in, and there is my second kill of the match. So with two eliminated, we head towards the Russian runway. There's a large number of Russian ground attack aircraft and light bombers that are floating around that area, so we're going to see if we can catch one of them. Now we have two targets freshly off the runway. We've got an Su-2 and an AR-2. The Su-2 is sort of the Russian equivalent of the SBD. There's actually it and a BB-1, which is the early version of it over here to the left, but the prime target is actually the AR-2. Better bomb load, better defensive armament, just a better aircraft in general in my opinion. And surprisingly dangerous as well, if you let them get altitude and get speed. So I don't want him to do that. I'm going to line him up and take him out first. So getting directly above him, and we're going to dive in directly from on top. We are manoeuvring against AAA here that is heavily focused on us. Flaps to combat as we dive down, and then we're going to deploy the air brakes and look at the monstrous size of the air brakes on this aircraft. This slows us down quite comfortably through the dive. We'll keep the air brakes deployed so we can drop in straight on the tail and get a nice long shot. Take the lead up the center of the plane, and there we go. We have just eliminated the aircraft, fold up the air brakes, tip it away, and pull away from the runway before AAA has its nasty way with us. Now, why did I sit on the tail like that? Well, the AR-2 is one of those aircraft, much like the Wellington, where if you can get a shot directly from the rear, you'll take out its tail control, which is what showed up as a critical there, but that's not actually what killed the plane. The game can only display one critical at any given time. I actually killed the pilot. If you sit right on the tail of an AR-2, you can put 50 cal rounds straight up the fuselage from the rear of the aircraft all the way to the cockpit and basically shoot the pilot in the back of the head. As I said a moment ago, Wellingtons are vulnerable to exactly the same thing, and this is largely because the rear section of the aircraft is virtually unarmoured, and there is nothing through the entire fuselage of the aircraft between the back of the plane and the cockpit position. So you avoid every defence that the aircraft has, every potential hitbox that you could hit that could take and absorb your shells, and just shoot straight through to the pilot. So at this point in the match, I wasn't really entirely sure what to do next. The last I-153 was still up and being engaged by multiple Spitfires. I was heading towards him, but I had a little hope that I would actually make it in time before the Spitfires took him out. There is an IL-2 to our left. He's heading directly back to the main Russian runway at this point in time, so there's no way known we're going to be able to intercept him before he makes it there, and I'm not keen at this point in going in and engaging an enemy aircraft in amongst all that AAA. And that's really it. I mean, we could go and, act like we're some kind of dive bomber or ground attacker and start strafing out artillery or AAA guns, but it seems like an awful waste of a fantastic fighter. But anyways, I was pleasantly surprised. We actually did get close enough to engage the I-153. We don't get any hits on it, but we did try. As you can see, it has taken serious damage. As it goes through the loop here and we get close enough, you'll see it is billowing white smoke. Its engine is not in a good way. We do get a brief opportunity here to get a couple of shots off at it, but nothing lined up. Use the air brakes just to arrest and control our dive here, fold them back up as we turn back through, and we're almost close enough to get the guns on as the Spitfire finally takes him out. Poor bloke, he put up a good fight. There were 3 Spitfires engaging him simultaneously, and it took all 3 of them to take him out, so a massive thumbs up to that I-153 pilot. I mean, that's what I like to see, even when you know you're going to die, and he would have known he was not going to survive this match. But even so, he didn't stop fighting. He put up a fight and made him work for it all the way through to the end. That's what I like. No running away from the fight. Engage them and make them work for it. Now, of course, that does mean we only have an IL-2 remaining on the enemy team, and the last place we saw it was heading towards the main runway. All that AAA. As you can see at the moment, we're running WEP trying to pull some altitude at the moment. We have an oil leak. The temperature is going up on the engine. We have a fuel leak. We are starting to get dangerously short in the fuel side of things, actually, especially considering that the leak has not sealed, so we are losing fuel faster than we would like. But it is one last enemy aircraft, and as I said, the SPD, even with the engine starting to go into amber, this thing will fly on a red engine for quite some time. And there is our IL-2, and it looks like he is going into land. Yeah, you know what? Screw it. This is technically a ground attacker, so yeah, let's go do this. Besides, let's be perfectly honest here, the rest of the team is composed primarily of Spitfires. The Dauntless is probably one of the few aircraft on this team that could actually make it through this AAA, potentially hit that IL-2, and survive. Now, all of our weaping has actually started to cause some major issues with the engine. Our engine is now up into the red. Don't really care too much. Fire off a short burst just to see whether I can take out that AAA gun. It's the closest one to my dive path. Just not flying straight, little bobs, little weaves, continually throwing off the AAA. One long burst through the front of the aircraft, unfortunately nowhere near as good a hits. Switch over to the rear guns. Now it's important to note the rear gun on this can only be fired at aircraft that are slightly above the height of the vertical stabilizer. It cannot shoot directly out the back. So I had to pull up to get a short burst off, roll the plane back through, reline back up for a pass. AAA starting to come back in again, and you can see that's why I wanted that AAA gun gone. I'm focusing on the cockpit. Pilot is eliminated. That is the final aircraft on the enemy team down, and my 4th kill of the match. Low and fast over the buildings, clear the AAA, and get the hell out of here before my plane explodes. As soon as we've cleared the buildings, immediately start pulling back on the throttle to try and cool it off. Now the cooling system is damaged, so a 0% throttle position is not going to cool the engine off. But if we pull the throttles back to 0 for a few moments and then bring them back up to 80, the aircraft should stay in the air and not have its engine fail for long enough for the enemy team's point score to tick down and the match to come to a close. So the results for the match. We came in on first place for the team with 4 kills, or really 3 kills and 1 ground target, as well as 0.604 tons of bombs delivered to the main bombing site. We got the Ground Forces Rescuer Award, Shadow Strike Streak X2, Final Blow, Terror of the Sky, Balancer and Bulletproof. 39,601 Silver Lions, and we came in with 2,734 research points that went into nothing because obviously I have nothing to research on the American side, and this plane is spaded. So not a bad match, and quite a lot of fun was actually had. And that is the Dauntless, America's most underrated rank 1 fighter. A plane that people look at and go, oh, I don't really want to drop bombs today. Well, yeah, it's got them and you can't take them off. But as you can see, the thing is a formidable little fighter, and it can perform extremely well, even up to its maximum battle up tier of 3.3. It's durable, it's maneuverable, it's not incredibly fast. That's its biggest downside. At only around about 450 kilometers in a level flight, if you can give it a whole map to accelerate to it, it's not fast. You're going to see sub 300 kilometers an hour a lot of the time in this aircraft. And that is, of course, level flight speed. It's near impossible to break its wings off. If you do get it up into the red speed category, a single tap of the air brakes will fix that problem instantly. It's actually a really good plane for learning how to effectively use in a dogfighting situation. It's fantastically fun, and it's just a shame that I don't see more people flying it. Anyways, ladies and gents, I hope you enjoyed the video, and until next time, remember, as always, leave a comment in the comment section down below. Click like if you do and you haven't already. Subscribe if you want to see more and you haven't already again. And until next time, fly smart, fly safe, and I will catch you in the skies.